Okay, I will call the regular meeting of the Temple CSD Board to order on Tuesday, July 18th. Follow roll call, please.
Director Bardonish is absent. Director Cardini.
Here.
Logan.
Here.
Pearson. Here. And Peterson.
Here. You join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would any of the board members like to change the order of business?
Not here.
Okay, seeing none, okay, we have one public on the, so this is time for the public to address the board on any items of interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, but not on the agenda today. So is there any of the public that has any comments, public comment?
Looks like somebody else joined too. I don't know if they heard you. You're Katie Sarko.
Yeah. This is a time for public comment, and I notice we have another person that just signed into the Zoom. Would you like to make any comments? Okay, hearing none. We will go to the consent agenda, and there's two items on the consent agenda. The minutes of the June 20th, 2023 meeting and the treasurer's report for May 2023.
I just have a question regarding the budget and because this is for the period ending May 31st, so we have 1 month left for this current fiscal year. So how are we tracking to end the fiscal year?
We did a projection in the budget that you adopted, when you adopted the 23-24 budget, we projected the expenses through June 30th, 2023. And listed that in the adopted budget. I don't know of any areas of concern. The year's actually over now. The fiscal year ended June 30th.
It hasn't been reported yet to the board.
Yeah, you haven't received the June. You
Yeah,
will.
yeah.
No.
So you don't recall how that compares to what's here?
Well, I haven't
If
done
not,
my, I haven't done
maybe.
my treasurer's report yet, but I mean, the best estimate is what was in the budget for 23-24. We had what we had, like Jeff was saying, what we projected for June 30th, 2023.
So
There were
no
no
surprises.
surprises. There were no surprises.
Okay,
Alarming.
okay.
I
Thank
just
you.
have one comment. I missed the last meeting, so I can't vote on the minutes.
Okay. I'll make a motion then that we approve the consent agenda. Item A, the minutes of June 20th, 2023, and the treasurer's report for May.
Oh, we have to have two motions.
Separate votes. So make a motion for the minutes.
Okay, the minutes. Okay. Need a second.
I'll second.
Okay,
Directors Peterson.
yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Bardonish is absent. Jardini
Abstain.
and Logan.
I
I failed to ask if there's anybody public comment on that. And seeing none, the treasurer's report is next. I'll make a motion that we approve.
we have public comment on the treasury report.
Okay, is there any comments on the treasurer's report? Hearing none, I'll make the motion then that we approve item B, the treasurer's report for May 2023.
A second.
Roll call?
Directors Peterson.
Yes.
Jardini.
Yes.
Bardonish is absent. Logan.
Aye.
and Pearson.
Okay, moving on to the business for this evening, we have two items. First item is the Fire and Emergency Services Development Impact Fee Workshop.
Yes, I can kick that off and then the bulk of this will be presented by Allison. The board will recall that in early June, excuse me, we presented a draft of the impact fee study that's been underway since we adopted the Fire and Emergency Services Master Plan earlier in March of this year. At the conclusion of that presentation, the board directed us to hold a workshop with the development community and also to kind of finalize a couple of the data points that we were still working on back in early June. We were able to update the data that was estimated to something that we believe is more defensible and accurate, and that's reflected in the presentation that you look at tonight. And then did provide a notice to somewhere near 100 water unit holders and members of the development community about tonight's workshop, and a copy of that notice is attached to your board packet. We didn't receive any comments from members of the development community ahead of the workshop tonight. And we haven't included, we included as a link, the presentation materials, which Allison prepared several weeks ago, a few weeks ago, once we had the data kind of sorted out. So they've had access to this information using the link, and maybe we have some interested person on the Zoom call today. So if you don't have any questions of me, I'd like to turn this over to Allison. She can give you the updated presentation and answer any questions that you or any members of the public have about the proposed fee adjustments.
All right, good evening, board members of the public. You should be able to see my screen, and please let me know if we have any audio or visual issues for the presentation.
So can the volume be turned up on our end?
I can talk loudly as well.
Is that better for you?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Much better.
Very good. Okay, so tonight we're here to talk about the Fire Services Development Impact Fee. And just as a bit of background, impact fees are one-time fees paid by new development for facilities, assets, and infrastructure costs. They're typically paid by developers and included in the cost of new homes at the time that permits are pulled for new construction. California law states that the impact fees must be proportional to the capacity or benefit attributable to new development. So in essence, we're finding the nexus between the costs of these facilities and the benefits received by new residents and new construction. And the fees are not for operating costs or general repair and replacement maintenance projects not related to or benefiting new growth and new development in your community. So kind of the flow of funds here is that new development pays the impact fees to the district. The district then constructs expanded facilities. Those new residents and businesses become taxpayers. And then as taxpayers, those taxes are funding operating costs. And their initial impact fees funded the construction costs for capital infrastructure. And then the taxes are paying the operating cost portion. So your current impact fees are updated annually by inflation and charged to all development, residential and commercial development. Single-story development is charged 87 cents per square foot. Multi-story development greater than 18 feet in height is charged $1.60 per square foot. And we're finding that most new commercial development is the multi-story type of construction. So single family new construction could be single story or multi-story, but heavily multi-story for commercial development. So an update is needed to incorporate new costs from the fire department master plan assessment, and particularly the expansion of the fire station. which is over 5 million in construction costs. And the prior impact fee study considered costs for an aerial apparatus for multi-story building. That's essentially why you have the single story fee plus the multi-story fee. But that is no longer needed. And then we have updated development projections.
What
So-
do you mean, may I ask questions now or afterwards?
Yeah, no, it's great.
What do you mean by updated development projections?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. So we last looked at the fees 5 years ago, so in 2018. So just what has occurred in the last 5 years. And then in 2018, we also used a data source that was admittedly a little dated at that time as well. I spent a lot of time looking back through our records from the 2018 study, and we were even using data that was 5-6 years old at that point in time. So I will get into this a little more in the presentation here about what data sources we've used this time and why we think those are better and more up-to-date development projections.
Okay, just if you could go back one slide. So if I'm understanding this, the update is needed to the fire station and the long range fire department master plan assessment. In that, what other apparatus or equipment or facilities needed to be updated? I guess I'm asking, I know we have the fire station, but what other things are included in this fee? Tangible things are included in this fee for the growth of development.
Yeah, a new fire engine, which is a pretty significant cost. I have it later in the presentation. It's over $1 million in cost that was recommended in the fire master plan as a new asset that will benefit the community, both current residents and growth, long term into the future.
Interesting, because we have that money now available to us.
Yes, that's a good point. And I can show you the math of how we're accounting for those funds. So that is an excellent point. And I'll continue on. That will come up in a few slides.
Okay.
Okay, so kind of building, my goal tonight is kind of to walk you through how we did the math and where the pieces and the different variables are coming from to calculate the fees. So one important aspect of the fee calculation is projected growth. So what is the new development in your community? And how will they impact your facilities? So this connection or impact fee study considers a 20-year planning horizon. So we're looking at growth in your community in terms of residential new homes, as well as commercial square feet of new growth. Over the next 20 years, we considered different metrics for estimating growth. And we ultimately settled on water capacity. In the past, the district has been very constrained with growth due to the limited water supply available for new residents and businesses. But my understanding is that you have an updated water supply model, which indicates that there is water capacity for future growth. So there's about 1,900 acre feet of potential total water supply. Existing water demand is about 1,300 acre feet per year. So that indicates future growth could be enough to use up about 600 acre feet of water supply. So if we look at the 1,300, we say, okay, 600 acre feet is how much growth? It's about 48% growth from the existing demand of water. However, we want to be somewhat conscious that just because that water is available doesn't mean everyone's going gangbusters in Templeton right away and that you'll totally use up that full amount of water supply over the next 20 years. So we've scaled that 48% back, scaled it down by 25%. And so we're estimating growth of about 36% over the next 20 years. Okay, So I applied that 36% growth rate to existing residents. So the existing residents as of 2023 is based on census data. And then, so the question about what data sources were updated, this is one of them, the commercial construction estimate. So we look back through our records and the records that the TCSD has available. And in 2011, the district collected very good data from the county in terms of commercial building in your service area. So we had good data about the square feet of commercial development. So 2011, that's over a decade old. So how do we get from 2011 to present to understand the total, service you're providing to commercial development? And so we had some discussion at the prior board meeting when we went over this item and what source of data is appropriate. And so we did some homework on this. So we were directed by the board to contact the county tax assessor's office to get the roll of all parcels, residential and commercial. And we were hoping that commercial tax roll would have the square feet of development, building construction. Sadly, it did not. I looked through it. We paid money actually to get that tax roll. It did not have the data available. I continued working with my contact at the county planning and building department. That ultimately did not pan out either. I expressed our urgency to get the data and it still kind of didn't go anywhere. But Natalie pulled through. She was able to pull impact fee collection data. So the revenues you were collecting from impact fees over the past 12 years or so. And from that revenue, we could calculate the number of new residents and businesses to get the total estimated square feet of commercial construction. So we really did try to take your feedback, do the homework, look through some different data sources. And so now we feel pretty confident that we understand your current demand on the fire system, both from residential customers and existing commercial development in your service area. Okay, so this chart shows the current level of, so equivalent dwelling units is the equivalent single family home. We're assuming an average home size of 2,200 square feet. And I want to point out that the 2,200 square feet represents all residential building space per parcel. So it could include things like sheds, workshops, like an overhang for parking, like parking structures, things like that. It's not just the indoor livable space. It's all construction on a parcel that the fire department would have to provide protection services for. And then the non-residential current square feet is about 1.5 million square feet. And that is the updated number based on actual connection or impact fees collected and verified by the district based on recent records. Then we've applied our growth factor of 36% and determined the total outlook of your community by 2043.
I'm sorry, I was writing something down. What is an EDU?
Equivalent dwelling unit, and it's the average single family home. So the relative impact of the average single family home on your fire services. So some families will be larger and have a larger home. Some families will be smaller, fewer number of people, smaller building size, but this is the average across your community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you asked about what costs are included in the impact fee and how we're calculating the amount for cost recovery. So we pulled these costs and facilities from your master plan, and I also worked closely with the fire chief to fine tune these numbers. So you have the fire station expansion costs. the training grounds costs and the new pumper engine that was recommended in the fire master plan assessment. So the total potential expansion cost is 6.94 million. But we have some revenue sources. So the first revenue source is the existing capital fund balance, about 2.7 million. And this number was slightly updated through, was it I think the end of May into June. It was just a slightly more updated fund balance. The district also has a small fire capital fee paid by the older part of your community that was implemented pre-Proposition 218. It collects about 18,000 annually. So I just amortized that revenue source over the next 20 years. So although the expansion costs are about $7 million, the district has about 3 million to apply towards that cost. So we have about 3.9 million or so that are attributable to the connection or the impact fee for cost recovery. Okay, so next I want to spend a few slides talking about how that cost should be attributable and collected from growth. The fire department serves two main functions, medical response and also fire protection. I think we tend to think of fire department as only fire protection, but according to your fire master plan, a huge amount of the demand for fire services is related to medical response, about 60% of service calls. So that portion of the fire service we're attributing to the number of people. So the number of people per home for residences or the number of employees per business will be how we allocate the medical response portion of the fee. And then about 40% of your fire department service calls are directly related to fire protection. And we're attributing that portion of the cost to the amount of building space. And as I mentioned, the amount of building space, we're not just considering it, livable or habitable space. We're also considering carports, workshops, sheds, garages, overhangs, things like that. And so those two factors are weighted together. So the 60% to medical response, 40% to fire protection to determine the total impact of growth. Okay, so we talked earlier about what's an equivalent dwelling unit, EDU. So we're saying an equivalent dwelling unit includes 2.68 people per home, and that's based on census data, and an average construction size of 2,200 square feet. And then non-residential impacts are based on the number of jobs or the number of employees in your service area for the medical portion of the fee, and then building size for the fire protection portion of the fee. So this chart is a little complicated, but this is the underlying math. So you take 2.68 people per home divided by 2,200 square feet. So you get about 1.22 people per 1,000 square feet for residential medical services impact. And then the census data also has pretty good information about the number of jobs in your service area. So I took the total number of jobs divided by the total commercial square feet to calculate that 2.39 jobs or employees per 1,000 square feet for non-residential construction. And then, as mentioned, the weighted impact is 60% of medical services and 40% of the fire protection service. So then the residential impact is the number of square feet times that weighting factor to get a weighted impact. And then the same calculation is done for commercial or non-residential. And the idea is to get the weighted impact of the two types of construction. So we take the total cost that we calculated earlier for impact fee recovery, so about 3.9 million. Divided by the total weighted build out, or we call it build out, really it's the weighted 20-year demand horizon. So it's commercial plus the residential demand. So then we get a base cost of about $1,000 per 1,000 square feet. And then it's multiplied by that demand factor that I calculated earlier. So basically I'm walking you through all the tables, all the math to get us to that final fee calculation. So for various residential construction types, the costs are illustrated below the bottom portion of the chart. So a larger single family home is maybe 2,500 square feet. Times that weighted cost per 1,000 square feet, we're getting about 2,900 fire impact fee per dwelling unit. A multifamily residential development might be an average of 1,500 square feet. So that would be about 1,800 per dwelling unit. And then I wanted to spend a minute to discussing accessory dwelling units. So legally, you cannot charge an impact fee for dwelling units below 750 square feet. So that really is the minimum size. So the absolute minimum fee would be about $900. And then I believe your building codes have the maximum size accessory dwelling unit as 1,200 square feet. So that would be a impact fee of about $1,400. So that's kind of the range for the accessory dwelling units. I know they'll vary in size somewhat, but they'll vary in size between 1,200 square feet and 750 square feet. So the range of accessory dwelling unit impact fees for the fire service would be about $1,400 with a low of about $900. Okay, so your current, so this chart shows a residential fire impact fee survey. And on this chart, I show your current 1-story fee for a 2,500 square foot home. So that's based on the 87 cents per square foot. And I wanted to point out that your schedule of fire impact fees also does include that 2-story fee of $1.60 per 1,000 or per square foot, right? So a 2-story fee, a 2-story home that was 2,500 square feet would be $4,000 under your current fee structure. And we're proposing to eliminate the 1-story, 2-story, breakdown of the fee, and all under the proposed rate structure, all multi-story, single story would all be charged the same. And so the proposed fee comes in the middle. It's about $3,000 per 25 square foot home. So it's actually a discount, a lowering of the fee for the 2-story charge, and then it's a raising of the fee for the 1-story charge that you currently have on the books. So that was kind of an interesting observation that we had when we were developing this new cost structure. And then this is the same type of survey where we looked at other local communities and what they charge per 1,000 square feet of commercial development. So like I said, your current commercial square fee per square foot is primarily the multi-story fee, the $1.60 per square foot. Most of your commercial development is that multi-story fee. So this is just a slight increase to about $1,900 per 1,000 square feet, up from $1,600 per 1,000 square feet. So I know that was quite a lot of math, but we wanted to be fully transparent with the information that we're using and the assumptions. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
So Allison, I have a question. Looking at the residential fees survey, you have 2,500 square feet, but yet under this slide that says impact of growth continued, it's the residential impact is based on a 2,200 square foot average residential structure.
That's a good point. So that's where I'm kind of going back to that equivalent dwelling unit kind of concept. Is that you'll have larger homes, you'll have smaller homes, you'll have multifamily homes, which tend to be much smaller. So we're using 2,200 as kind of the average across many different types of housing development. But we think the standard, single family home is probably closer to 2,500, and then multifamily and more efficiency type housing units would probably be smaller square feet. So we're trying to estimate an average across all these mixes of housing types, and that's how we got to 2,200.
So were there some dwellings that you eliminated then to get to the 2,500?
You mean
2,500 is just used for comparison purposes. It's not, it's just that all the other. all the
Oh,
other-
it's not the map that's.
Yeah, it's on the map. It's
Okay.
just, some agencies charge a fixed fee based on square foot, based on housing type, some will be per square foot. The 2,500 is in that sample, it was just 2,500 square feet across all those agencies. What would the cost be for a 2,500 square foot home?
Thank you.
I also have questions. When we did the estimate for the fire station that came in at 5.3 million.
Yeah.
So we got one estimate on the fire expansion at 5.3 million. Is that standard of practice in the industry to base a fee on only one cost estimate?
So we use the best available information at the time that the fee is calculated. And once you actually go to bid the project, the cost might be higher or lower, but this is the best available information we have at the moment to calculate the fee.
So the best information available that you have is the one cost estimate that we got.
Correct.
Okay, so you did this as a 20-year plan. So in this 20-year plan, we want to expand the fire station and we want to buy a fire truck. And we want to, what else do we want to do here?
Training grounds.
Training grounds. So this fee that we're charging, then do we have to build those things within that 20-year time frame in order to justify this cost?
Right, so there's a reasonableness threshold. Do you reasonably anticipate these costs to serve the reasonable amount of growth over the next 20 years? So you have a well-documented study that says, yes, you do need to build these facilities. And I believe the intention when you accepted the master plan was that you agreed with that assessment. So these are based on your reasonable intentions with the fire station expansion. It might come down to a legal question, so I might defer to legal counsel, but industry standard is based on the reasonable, well-intentioned, well thought out, well-justified costs of where you think your community will go in the next 20 years is justifiable for the impact fee.
So if the city of Paso Robles proposes is considering doing a training ground, and then our training grounds will become obsolete, would we then go back through, would be obligated to go back through and reduce our fee by that $432,000 and how it's spread across the cost if we find out that they're going to go forward with that?
I would say, again, this might be a legal question, but I would say when you have major differences and major changes to your plan, your facility plan for the next 20 years, at that point, that would probably trigger an update to the development impact fee.
Okay, so basically these development impact fees are going towards the fire station, the grounds, and the engine. And is the fee that's collected then proportional? Is it all put into one lump thing and we go, oh, we want to do the training grounds upgrade now, so we pull it out? Or is it put proportionally into each little category and we have to wait for that category to get to that number before we can do it?
No, you have one fire impact fee development, fire development impact fee fund. And so all the revenues go into that fund, and then all the costs are paid out of that fund. And you don't have to account for each individual component of the facilities and the costs.
And then have you done a projection on what our asset replacement fees are on these purchases? So our asset replacement for the training grounds, for the pump engine, and for the fire station. Because asset replacement fees are not collected in the fire fees, correct? They are,
That's a good question. Yeah, so normal like wear and tear on your assets and facilities, or essentially depreciation, that would be more of an operating cost.
okay, so those fees are not collected in this.
Correct.
The other thing is you had a projected growth of 30%, 36% growth rate.
Yes.
And our water and sewer department handle that 36% growth rate starting next year and the following year and the following year. Because I don't know if we have enough water meters come February to allow 36% growth rate for next year to what is the projected cost or the projected growth this is based on, when we don't know if we have the water and sewer capacity to do that. So it's sort of a domino effect, or maybe a way that we're saying, okay, we're projecting this growth for our town, and we're saying that we need 36%. This is based on 36% growth. But do we have the water to accommodate 36% growth next year and the following year? And do we have the sewer capacity to accommodate that growth rate? I don't have an answer to that. I don't know if we have an answer to that, because I think that I don't know how many water meters we have out there right now, 2,000 and something like that. So that would be a release of 72 to 80 water meters, and we've been releasing about 30 to 35 the last 3 years. Before that, we hadn't been releasing any. Our sewer treatment plant has nitrate problems, so we're going to have to upgrade that. And it is only designed for residential, not for commercial. So we're also projecting a commercial cost in this. So these are some questions I have, that your 36% growth rate is determined maybe not based on what we can actually facilitate on our water and sewer end. So I question that.
Well, I think that's a good question, and I think it goes back to what's the growth projection that's used in the water and sewer master plan?
So, yeah, the 36, she brought up math here, the additional water availability is based on the water that's already been allocated but not yet connected. And the assumption that we can bring on the full Nasi Minna subscription online over the next 20 years using the Nasi Recharge and Recovery project. The data matches the information that we've provided to through the water buffer model, and we provide to LAFCO through our MSR in terms of the total water availability. And then we reduced it by this 25%. We discussed this back in early June, because we thought that that's still too aggressive. We've had water out there for many years, 3 decades, in some cases that still is unconnected. So we think it's too aggressive to assume that every gallon of water that's made available will be connected within 20 years. And so we back that off. It's still probably too high, to be honest, in terms of what will actually connect. But I think it's safer from the perspective of calculating the fees to lie on that side of the line than it is to be overly conservative. Because if there's less projected growth, but you have the same needs in terms of facilities, it drives the costs higher.
Correct. But my question is acre feet per year, future growth, 626 acre feet, how many meters is that?
That's the 20-year horizon.
Over a 20-year period, it is, a little quick math. Oh. 729 housing units at 575 gallons a day.
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years, but keep in mind about half of those are already out there. They're just not yet in production.
Okay, so that leaves 350 divided by 20 years is basically 15 meters we can release a year. 15 meters a year is not going to come up to this 36% growth rate. Not even close. And those meters that have been sitting out there for 20 years, we haven't had any movement on them. I think Hank Grattan might be turning some in because he got mini storage unit okayed, which is not going to be the 30 some water units he has out there. But you also have in there, it doesn't include the 20% buffer. So I can't in my mind see how our water projection equates to this allowing a 30%, 36% growth.
So we know that not every, this usage right now, so the existing water demand 1,294 is based on last year's, what it took to serve the existing community. So the 626, even though we tally 729, I get 730 units total at 575 gallons a day. Just keep in mind that once actual production is reached, that's when the rebalancing of the water buffer model occurs. That's why we've been able to essentially release new units over the last 3 years, because folks are not using their full allocation, right? They're not, every house isn't necessarily using all 575 gallons when you average them all together. And so more water units have been made available just through conservation efforts, right? Like, for example,
but that's an unknown factor.
well, that's why we have this somewhat sophisticated water buffer model, right? That averages it over 10 years worth of data.
Right, but in that model, you're including the units that have been out there forever that haven't
Yes,
been used.
yes, those are reserved, right?
Right, and I'm saying that they haven't been used for the last 10, 15
Yeah,
years.
many of them have been there a long time.
Right, and now you're saying that those are included in the growth to accommodate this 36% growth. And I'm saying that that's a unjustified statement because of the history, that really we should take out of there those units that haven't been used because they haven't been used historically. Nobody's turned in their water meters, our incentives haven't worked. And so we should base our growth on what actually we're going to be able to release, which would be about 15 units a year. Which
So-
then becomes a problem, because if I remember correctly, if we go to the administration portion of the fire department budget, the fire department needed basically 50 houses a year to be built to accommodate that $140,000 charge. And so I can't see how all these things are fitting together appropriately. It seems like it's a bit voodooism here.
So if that 36% is reduced, it's gonna drive up the impact fee even greater.
I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that, but the thing is that, either you drive up the impact fee greater, or you encourage further development somehow to keep that fee down because we have the water to do that. Or the other thing I would say you do is you get another estimate for the fire department station. Because in my business, which is in the construction industry, you don't get one bid on a project, you get 3 at a minimum. And that, I guess by law, we're not held to any kind of timeline for this development. But the other thing is, we haven't looked at, if we do these things, how do we then fulfill our asset replacement fund? It seems like it's all intertangled.
Well, keep in mind, we're already doing these things, right? Building is occurring now, we're collecting impact fees
Right.
when building permits get pulled. So we're already, we have, $2.7 million in this account. So we're already in this, we're already doing these things. This update was a way of making the fees match the adopted plans, the recently adopted plans. It's a much more defensible position to be in than charging, but right now our calculations are based on fees that were originally established about 20 years ago. And the district's plans for fire services have changed quite a bit over that period of time. So there's an advantage of having the fees based on the currently adopted plans.
But the currently adopted plans are not realistic when we have half the water out there that's not going to be used. I understand that it'll drive up the fee costs, but I'm saying, how can we base that and use it as a base, knowing that history doesn't support that?
Well, you could adjust the assumption about how much, if you think 75% is way too aggressive, we spent a little time on this back in early June. And you reduce that figure, you can. I think if you think that that's not reasonable, and it might be on the outset of what's reasonable, based on, again, the fact that about half the water, roughly speaking, is already assigned to property that's not in use as of the moment. Some of it will be put to use, certainly, because we've got, they've been more recently issued, and there's terms and agreements that require it to be returned if they fail to put it in use in time, etc. But the older units that are out there that have been, kind of languishing or assigned to property not being put to use after 10 or 15 or 20 and sometimes longer periods of time. I agree with you that I don't think it's reasonable that all of it will be put to use, but how much of it will be? Some of it will be over the next 20 years.
1%, 2%, 5%, 30%. We don't know.
If we don't know.
I'm just uncomfortable. Maybe I'm the only one. I don't know.
No, we had a discussion. I don't know that you were at that meeting where we had that discussion about that. And it's difficult to say. I mean, I think these are just the best estimates that are being used. That I think we had, as a board, said, yes, we're comfortable with that. But it's like this this impact fee, let's say that something else happens and we get funding for, or we get that fire engine from
Oh, and that is,
yeah, that he's put in. I mean, that changes this, and I think that it's like most things, I think if there's changes, because 20 years is a long time. And there's gonna be changes that occur in that time frame that I think could impact this plan. There could be new things that we have to add to the plan that we need to account for, or things that we need to go back and say, no, this, we got the fire engine that we needed. Or I won the lottery and I've paid for the fire station expansion. But I think that 20 years is a long time, but I think this is kind of just a starting point, and to say that based on reasonable information that's available to us, this is what we're putting forth.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that at the June budget workshop, which was just a month ago, we were told that the fire department had to build 50 homes a year to make up the 140,000. A 36% growth rate would be 28 homes a year, plus or minus. So our numbers for our fire department aren't lining up, and it has me concerned. And I have a concern about and I brought that up to the board, that we only had one estimate on the fire department station, the expansion at 5.3 million, because I thought that was not industry standard. And I am bringing up another concern. And I think that it's problematic that our 27, 28 units that we would need to build a year for 30%, 36% growth rate doesn't equate to the 50 houses per year. And also that half of that water in there isn't going to be used immediately. And so we don't know what our water meter issuance is going to be in this February either. We have no idea. We don't have any idea of whether our sewer and water, if our sewer can handle that growth. I mean, if you need to grow 50 houses a year, can we, that means in 5 years, that's 250 homes. Can our sewage plant handle that with the nitrate upgrades that are being required, the commercial development that's going in? Can our water demand hit that too? And so I am uncomfortable with this analysis.
Well, I see the water and sewer as a separate issue, because I think if we have the growth that we're projecting, and if we have the water units being released, it's a given that water and sewer has to follow. And we do have a master plan for water and sewer. We've also have some expansion that we are needing to make. Is that correct? Based on us having close to 2,000 connections.
We have to prepare our urban water management plan that's underway now. That won't change the capacity. It's just a regulatory requirement.
Okay.
But yeah, we have a water and sewer master plan update that's now funded in the 23-24 budget. I'm not sure about I don't know where the 50 units a year assumption is coming from. I don't recall that specifically, but just keep in mind, this is a 20-year planning horizon, but it doesn't mean that this fee program will be in place for 20 years. You can update it anytime there's better information that's available. It's just, we have to pick a period of time to determine when do we need to have the expenses incurred and how much development will take place in that period of time. It could have been 25 years or 30 or 15. We picked 20 and that's where we stand. It's not, yeah.
I just think our board needs to not look at each individual fund and say, oh, this is great. That we are responsible, our fiduciary responsibility is to look at all the funds and make sure that the plans match up. And I don't see this plan matching up with the water and sewer, because it's not being presented to me. And our water release of meters has not met anywhere the need that's going to be is projected here and the need for the admin. And so I understand we need a starting point, but I think we have an obligation to be not just put one piece of the puzzle down. We need to like solve the entire puzzle. So I'm uncomfortable with this.
I'd like to open up the public. I know there's a question.
Yeah, just a comment, if Director Jardini's worst case scenario came to happen, you started expanding over, say, the next 5 years, and you could see that your resources couldn't keep up with the growth that was going on, could you then implement a building moratorium?
You want me to try to answer that?
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, that's what occurs here. Water units are not, we don't issue a will serve letter for new development unless the water and sewer has been secured for the parcel and a fire review for that parcel. So essentially, that's why we have this sort of pent up demand for water, because it's not available, it's not available at the counter at all times. The water units are released to the wait list. And so the water units are not released until they are available.
So you have a checks and balances in place, should worst case scenario occur, you can deal with it.
No, because if worst case scenario occurs, then you are releasing no water and sewer and we're not getting any fees in. If you put a moratorium in on water and sewer, you have no development, fire department gets no fees in. So that's not the answer.
But I don't think this is about releasing it to say, this is what we're projecting the volume to be. Based on that, this is what the fees will be. That's what we're saying here.
I'm saying, yes, I understand that, but I'm saying we're looking at one piece of the puzzle here. From what I'm seeing, this piece of the puzzle doesn't fit with the recent piece of puzzle that we just got from the fire department, nor do we know if it fits in with our water and sewer. And that we need to look at all of those, maybe not tonight, but I'm saying I'm uncomfortable without looking at the big picture.
I tend to disagree, because I think I view this a little differently than you do. In that we do have the controls in place. It's about impact fees. It's not about, do we have every strategic plan all aligned and working in the same, on the same project plan, because that's not what this is. It's not an operational plan. It's saying, how do we set the rate given what we need in the way of expenses? What does that impact fee need to be? Based upon what we think the growth will be, here's what we should be charging when that growth occurs. That's what this is about.
Right, and so that.
It's not about when do we allow growth, when do we release anything? It's about just what do we charge for impact for development? That's all this is.
Right, and I'm saying that your projection of your development is not substantiated. You're doing a pie in the sky 36% because you don't know if your water or sewer funds or capacity is there, and we don't know what the.
But that's not the basis of the 36% of whether or not there's water and sewer.
You can't have 36% growth if you don't have sewer available to.
But that's not
accommodate
why, but I don't think that's the premise behind that 36%.
that. Okay, so
The
we'll just-
36% is based on what do we think the development will be.
I agree, but.
Okay,
Okay, so it's pie in the sky then. I'm saying that what we think it is, so we have the information at our fingertips as a board to say what the reality is based on water and sewer. We have that. And so why are we making a judgment or a guess of 36% when in reality, we know how much sewers capacity we have left, how much water we think we can release over the next couple of years or not. So it could be based on a real projection instead of a guesstimate.
I'd like to put the public, have a comment if there's anybody on the Zoom that has a comment.
I think it's just
Sharing
carried.
anything else?
Is this gonna come to a vote of the board, whether or not you accept this proposal?
Yeah, yes, tonight's agenda item was a workshop with direction. If we're gonna move forward, a notice public hearing would take place, and then only after that public hearing could the board take action to implement the proposed rates, their proposed fees.
Do you have a proposal that you would like to make? We're gonna have to make a vote tonight, so do
Well,
you?
I don't think it's voting. Actually.
It's just a recommendation.
Well, it's a
for today.
recommendation.
But I think what you're raising are operational issues versus what do you charge for an impact fee based upon what the needs are of the fire department? So two separate issues as I see it. Operational costs, which I don't disagree with the points you're bringing up, but I see it outside of what are we charging for or need to charge for impact fees to support what we have in the master plan and what's needed for the fire department.
The growth of the sewer plant is not an operational cost. It's just like this. It's
The impact
a,
fee is.
it's a, how much room do we have left in our current sewage treatment facility? Do we have room for 50 more houses, 300 more houses? When does the upgrades gonna be? And, you know, do we have the water?
Can I make a
So,
recommendation? Because
I don't know, you just cut me off.
I'm sorry, go ahead. My apologies.
And the water, and so, you know. I can't help it. That's how my mind works, is you put everything together so it makes it work and it's substantiated.
So we look at the water buffer policy once a year. And that's telling us what we're releasing. Because we're saying this is what we think we're gonna release over the next 20 years. But when we look at that water buffer policy each and every year, that's telling us what we're able to release. Would you be comfortable if we, at that point in time, also kind of review this impact fee and some of the assumptions we're making there to make a determination whether or not the board needs to revisit the impact fees?
I think that it needs to be not only water but sewer, because for every residence we build, unless they're on septic, their sewage needs to go to a sewage treatment plant, and I have no idea. And I know I'm on the facilities committee. We were recently told that nitrate levels are gonna have to go to basically minimum, and we're gonna have to do all these upgrades. So while we're doing those upgrades, we should probably do an expansion too. And my understanding, and I could be incorrect on this, is that our sewage treatment plant was built to handle only residential sewage and not commercial sewage, and that's just why that we have the problems with the biodegradables, whatever from the wineries. And so if we're going to continue to have commercial growth, we should look at upgrading that too. And so I'm just saying, that's a good strategic planning session or sessions. What I'm uncomfortable with here is the future growth is, to me, cannot be substantiated enough in my mind when I look at those other factors to agree with this.
Well, and I see this as kind of a starting point. So where I'm trying to get to is, you know, because things will change over time. And certainly over 20 years, things will definitely change. So what I'm saying is that, do we need to kind of keep this on a dashboard when we look at the water buffer policy each year, which tells us exactly how many water units are we able to release, and where do we stand with those that have been released but not yet connected? And I think also bringing in water and sewer, I mean, that would bring in the water and sewer, but then looking at this to say, are we achieving that kind of growth that we have here for the impact fees? Because if not, that's an opportunity to say, well, maybe we need to open this up again and revisit that.
I think you're saying what I've been asking for, yes.
Okay, so that would be a solution then to, because I think you're right, we've got to kind of keep all of this together on a dashboard. Because it is connected, but I hate to see that we not adjust the impact fees because there's such critical need for the fire department. But you're right, our assumptions may not be, they may not come to fruition. That may be even greater, it may be less, it may be more, but it would be a way for us to kind of keep engaged, and not just say, oh, let's approve it, and then it's shelved for 20 years. So I think maybe when we do the water buffer policy, we also look at this again
Well.
and see how it's all trending.
And
Yeah.
Does that sound reasonable for?
Well, I don't, this growth rate is not gonna be linear, right? There's gonna be some years there's gonna be
is.
more growth or more releases than others. I think you're gonna be, Allison, maybe you can update just real quickly. There's like a new law took effect that the studies that these are based on have to be within 8 years old. Now, is that correct?
I don't recall exactly, but I am hearing from a lot of agencies that they need to update more frequently than in the past.
So, yeah, so these things are not gonna be able to just stay in place for 20 years. We'll have to have a current master plan. Ours is just adopted, just in March, very fresh.
Yeah.
So at some point in time, you'll have to review this because of the information, the fees cannot be based on information that is too old, too outdated. So, the impact fee setting process is typically not something that is studied or done like annually. It's on like every 5 or 10 year kind of a system. I would suggest you'd only adjust it when the date gets too stale, or when there's been significant changes in the plan and the master plan. So for example, right now, this is based on the need to build this fire station expansion, renovate the existing space, do some work in the training facilities and add a type 1 pumper, type 1 engine as a second additional engine in the station. If most of those things happen over the next 10 or 15 years, and a new master plan is adopted that has different goals for the following 15 years, then you do this all over again and figure out what should the fees be to meet the now identified needs. But these are the needs that the board adopted and identified. I would say that yes, I think the growth projection is probably I don't think it's pie in the sky. I think it's probably higher than I would expect to see over the next 20 years. But I caution you against making it overly conservative, because what that will do is it'll drive up the fees, and if it's too conservative, I think it puts our fee calculations at risk. If it's unreasonably conservative, if we only think there'll be I don't know what the number is. It's it's gonna make it. It could be unreasonable the other direction, which could make the fees vulnerable. It would also raise them dramatically.
So going back,
There's an advantage. Even though the fee amounts here overall, I don't know. I wouldn't even call this an increase. It's an increase in single story fees. It's an increase in commercial fees. It's a decrease for lots of housing development on a per square foot basis. But the real advantage to us is it ties the fees that we collect to projects that we know we need and want to proceed with.
yeah. And I'm just looking for a way to, how do we address to kind of keep it in front of us to say, does it still hold water? I think that's your biggest concern is, are these assumptions still holding true, or are they not? And we can see easily if any of those costs changes, that's a given. But if if some of the growth, and also to Director Giardini's concern about, well, do we have capacity on the back end for the water and sewer? So that's why I'm suggesting.
Yeah, this
we
is,
do-
this is based on our projected water capacity. Plus the water that's already been issued, subtracting 25% of that projected.
But the sewer on the back end.
Yeah, the sewer capacity is not a component in here.
Yeah.
We don't have the sewer is a constraint, right? We're doing about 425,000 gallons a day. We have a plant that's designed to treat 600,000 gallons a day. There's room for more volume. But we're not constrained on, we have a lot of space at the wastewater plant. It's a money issue, not a rights issue. To expand the sewer facility. The big concerns facing the wastewater plant right now, or in the near term, are not capacity, but rather quality of treatment.
Yeah. Okay. Different issue.
Regulatory issue.
So we could still take it in, it's just the quality.
Yeah, it'll have to be treated to a higher standard.
Okay. So I think it's still, I go back to, I just, if we're gonna talk water buffer policy at that point in time in the year, that's an annual event. Is maybe we just kind of revisit this to make sure that it's still, we're comfortable with it.
I think that we should have a workshop looking at all three of those outside of regular board meeting to look at all the impact, but I've been saying that for. No.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion that the staff, that the board, oh, go ahead.
Unrelated to the topic, but for the estimated square foot for the EDU, does that account for the ADUs? Is it kind of laws and climate with ADUs? Or is that all encompassed together, or is that just, are they considered two separate?
That was that 1,200 or yeah, 1,200 to 750 number.
Zero to use, right?
Mhm. Right there on the bottom.
Yeah, so the average size, we are using 1,200 or 2,200 square feet as the equivalent dwelling unit size. And so that's sort of an average across all different types of single family and multifamily residential home sizes. It is very difficult to estimate how many accessory dwelling units will occur, in your community, and then what sizes they will be. So the 2,200 square feet is more representational of single family and multifamily being, duplexes, triplexes, condos, townhouses, rather than the kind of more mini accessory dwelling unit size.
Thank you.
Ready for a motion? So I'm.
We can.
Well, it is, I'm gonna make a motion that we move forward with the staff's recommendation to set a public hearing for September 5th, formally consider adoption of the fees.
I'll second. Does any of the public have any comments?
Wait, sorry, I'm a little confused because I'm looking, it said the recommended action was that the board participate in formal workshop. Where is it that?
It's the very end of that where it
The
says
very
we have
end.
to set the public hearing.
For the conclusion of the, okay.
That's what she's making a motion. Roll call.
Directors Logan,
Aye.
Peterson,
All right.
Bardonish is absent, Giardini. Yes. And Pearson.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Our next item is resolution number 14-2023 county tax roll.
So, this resolution 14/2023 is just a routine yearly item that comes before the board, every year. The recommended action of this resolution is that the board of directors open a public hearing and accept testimony on the proposed assessments and charges. And following the public item, the board should by motion adopt resolution 14/2023. A resolution adopting the report on assessments for street lighting, delinquent water sewer charges, delinquent weed abatement fees, the CFD 2017-1 assessments and fire and emergency services special tax levy measure A, and authorizing their collection on the county tax roll. Fiscal impact, the streetlight assessments totaled $11,560. The delinquent water and sewer charges were $1,176. Weed abatement fees, we actually originally had 5. You should have received a new exhibit A for weed abatement. 2 parcels have paid, so we're down to 3. That total now is $6,517. The CFD assessments total $75,900, and measure A parcel tax is $519,630. And then just if the board does not adopt this resolution tonight, then the collection will not be possible to go onto the county tax roll. We did not have any written protests. I didn't get any. We did have one property owner on weed abatement that called and was grumbling, but they did pay. Everybody's been noticed, and other than that, I don't think there's, I don't know if there's any public, but that's pretty much it on
Could
this.
I have officially open the public?
You should.
All right, I will officially open the public hearing for resolution 14-2023 and county tax roll. Are there any public that wishes to comment? Any board members who wish to comment? Hearing none, I will accept the motion.
Close the hearing.
Ready?
Close the.
Close, okay, I'll close the hearing.
I'll make a motion that the board approve resolution number 14-2023, adopting the reports on streetlight assessments, delinquent water and sewer charges, delinquent weed abatement fees, the Community Facilities District 2017-1 assessments, and measure A partial tax, and authorizing their collection on the county tax roll.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Directors Logan,
Aye.
Gardini. Aye. Cardonish is absent. Pearson. Aye. And Peterson.
Yes. Okay, general manager's report.
Just a couple things to update you on. I am back after being gone for a couple weeks. Happy to be here. Just on the mid-state assignment, requested assignment to waste management, I wanted to update you on that. The county did solicit proposals to have a consultant prepare a study that would ultimately be presented to the Board of Supervisors. This is on the county's franchise. The county holds a franchise agreement with Midstate, as do we. They're totally independent. However, the sale of Midstate to Waste Management is contingent upon both TCSD approving the assignment as well as the county approving the assignment. The county hired a consultant by the company by the name of R3. I did participate in a little a pre-proposal meeting to Q&A with several consultants that were interested. They only had one proposal. They hired R3 and they are underway. And they expect to have their report done by the end of August. And the county expects to take this item to the Board of Supervisors in probably October. So I think there'll be a period of time between in September that we can take the draft report, might be in draft form at that point in time, to our Parks, Recreation and Refuse Committee. So that there will be an opportunity for the committee to make a recommendation to the board and then bring it before the board. All accomplished prior to the, faster than the county's going to get it done anyway. That's kind of been my commitment to Brad Goodrow, is that we should be able to do this before the county makes the decision, so we won't be holding them up any further. So we'll have access to the same information that the consultants preparing for the county. Our requirements are a little less stringent. Our requirements for the assignment provision and the franchise agreement are a little less cumbersome, I guess strange is probably not a good word, cumbersome. And so the report will contain information that's a little bit like above and beyond what we need, but all the items that we need to, that we believe you need to make the decision are expected to be contained in the report. So that's what I have on that, and I'm here.
So I have a question on that. What does our contract with Midstate say regarding acquisitions? If they're required?
There's a provision that requires, I shouldn't say requires, there's an assignments clause in the agreement that allows Midstate to request, allows them to request the franchise be assigned to another, like is being
Transferred.
Yeah, the agreement would remain in place more or less as it is, just with the new party. The assignments provision states more or less that you will not unreasonably withhold approval, but the approval was based on a number of criteria that are outlined in the agreement, and that those criteria are what the county's consultant are reviewing. The county's requirements are have a few more points, and so it's going to include some things that our agreement didn't anticipate. But all the items that are in the franchise agreement, all the provisions that you should be making the decision based on are expected to be included in the county's the report the consultant prepares for the county.
And our contract with them, excuse me, is 10 years?
Our contract with them is, yes, it's like an evergreen contract with if you terminate the contract, it's like a 10-year notice, essentially.
And so we expect that the rates will remain the same.
Yes, the assignment provision is clear that is not an automatic opportunity for a rate review.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody in the public have a question for general manager? That's it?
It's it.
Okay. Committee reports, we have one on K. Any comments? Public, board? And we have a number of activity update reports, engineering, finance, fire and emergency services, parks, rec, and solid waste and utility. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, hearing none. Any directors' reports or comments? Before I close the meeting? Seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.